Okay, so imagine this. $8.6 billion
Hmm.
just moved in complete silence
Yeah.
from wallets that hadn't been touched in over 14 years.
14 years is a lifetime in crypto.
And get this, it happened on July 4th, American Independence Day.
Right, the symbolism.
Now, you might think, okay, this sounds like some kind of sci-fi movie plot.
It definitely has that feel, a thriller almost.
But it's real. It actually happened.
Yeah.
July 4th, 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So here on the deep dive, that's what we're digging into today. We want to, peel back the layers of this whole mysterious event.
It's quite a story, layers upon layers.
It is. We're looking at not just what happened, but all the stuff woven into it, the technical skill, the legal moves, even these weird cultural references.
It's incredibly complex.
Yeah, it was way more than just moving money around, it felt like. Like
Yeah.
a performance, a very deliberate one.
And a performance on a scale we've just never seen before. When that much Bitcoin moved, well, it set off alarms everywhere.
Right.
People immediately started asking, why now? After all this time, why so much?
Yeah.
And what makes this different from, say, just a regular whale-moving funds?
Exactly.
The scale, yes, but also the backstory of these specific wallets. It's unique.
So let's dive into the core facts then. July 4th, 2025, 80,000 Bitcoin.
80,000.
Which at today's prices, we're talking $8.6 billion.
Yeah.
Moved all at once.
Essentially simultaneously, yeah.
And it came from 8 different wallets, but each one held exactly 10,000 BTC.
That uniformity is key.
And as you said, dormant for over 14 years, created between 2010 and 2011.
Ancient history in Bitcoin terms.
So this coordinated move, it's literally the biggest single Bitcoin operation ever recorded.
By far. Nothing else really comes close in one go like this.
So tell us more about these fossil wallets, as you call them.
Right. Well, first, they all use the P2 PKH standard, pay to pub key hash.
Okay.
That was standard practice in Bitcoin's very, very early days. But it's, let's say, less robust than the formats we use today, like SegWit.
So potentially more vulnerable, theoretically?
Potentially, yes, especially to future computational advances, perhaps. And crucially, 0 outgoing transactions, ever, since creation.
Wow.
And that uniform, 10,000 BTC in each, it doesn't scream individual investors, does it?
No, that sounds very intentional, planned.
Exactly. It suggests a common origin, maybe batch creation, something like that.
Okay.
And we can even see 2 distinct creation waves. 2 wallets popped up on April 2nd, 2011, funded from one source.
Right.
Then 6 more on May 4th, 2011, funded from several different sources.
Interesting.
So yeah, all this points away from separate people accumulating Bitcoin and much more towards some kind of single orchestrated effort behind all 8 wallets.
Okay, so the big question then, with funds sitting there untouched for 14 years,
Yeah.
how on earth do you prove you actually control them now?
Right.
I mean, verifying that seems like a huge hurdle.
It does, and that's where this gets technically really elegant, actually. The proof came via Bitcoin Cash.
Ah, the fork.
Exactly. Remember the 2017 fork? Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash shared the same history, the same private keys up to that point.
Okay, so the addresses existed on both chains.
Precisely. And watch the timing here. This is fascinating. On July 4th, 2025, at 02.41.32 UTC, 10,000 Bitcoin Cash moved from one of these addresses.
Okay, the BCH moved first.
Yes. Then, exactly 1 hour later to the second, practically at 03.43.33 UTC, 10,000 Bitcoin moved from the exact same address.
Wow, okay, that's pretty definitive.
It is. It's irrefutable proof of private key control. Only the person holding the key could sign transactions on both chains from the same address.
So they use BCH as a test run.
It looks exactly like that, a prudent test, like a sandbox, before moving the real prize on the main Bitcoin network.
That shows some serious foresight and skill.
Multi-blockchain mastery, absolutely. It wasn't just luck.
So that BCH test, it really does feel like checking the water before diving in. And when you look at the whole timeline, right, from creating the wallets way back in 2011, all the way to this coordinated execution on July 4th, 2025. What does that imply about the planning? This wasn't spontaneous, was it?
Oh, absolutely not. This screams long-term planning. Years, potentially. Deep understanding of the tech. Patience. Waiting for the right moment, maybe.
It's quite chilling in a way. But then it gets even stranger, right, with the messages.
Yes, the communication layer. This is where it shifts from just technical prowess to something more performative.
Like leaving digital graffiti on the blockchain itself, meticulously staged messages.
Exactly right. They used operturn outputs, basically small bits of data embedded in transactions.
Like little notes.
Kind of, and they released them sequentially, like chapters. First, July 1st, 1000.30 UTC. Legal notice. We have taken possession of this wallet and its contents.
Cold. A declaration of war, almost.
Pretty much. Then, less than half an hour later, 0.54 UTC, same day. Not abandoned. Prove it by an on-chain transaction using private key by SEP30.
The ultimatum.
Precisely. Then, fast forward 2 days, July 3rd. Notice to owner. See salamonbros.com/owner notice.
Bringing in an external element, making it seem official, legitimation.
That's the one. Professionalizing the whole thing.
But the wildest one has to be the last one.
Oh, definitely. July 4th, 16.00 UTC, sent to just 3 of the 8 wallets. The message was just numbers. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42.
The lost numbers.
The lost numbers. Anyone who watched the show remembers those. They were this huge central mystery tied to fate, disaster.
Yeah, they were everywhere in the show. Kind of cursed.
And think about the parallel. Someone potentially holding a dangerous secret, a cryptographic exploit maybe, signing off with those numbers. But here's the real kicker.
Go on.
The episode of Lost, Orientation, where the character Desmond explains just how critical those numbers are. It aired on October 5th, 2005.
Okay.
The deadline they set in their own legal notice is October 5th, 2025.
Wait, exactly 20 years later.
Exactly. To the day, the odds of that being a coincidence, vanishingly small.
Wow. That's insane. That feels like it has to be intentional.
It suggests the whole thing was conceived as this elaborate narrative, a total piece of performance art almost. And remember, they only sent this number sequence to 3 of the 8 wallets.
So selective.
Yeah.
Even their messaging was strategic.
Refined strategy, yeah. Putting all these messages together, the timing, the content, it just rules out coincidence.
Okay, my mind is kind of blown by that lost connection. But then there's an even more, let's say, direct message, isn't there?
Yeah.
Embedded right in an address.
Yes, the vanity address. One of the addresses receiving some of this huge sum. Oh, let's just read it. BC1Q WQ5's Geeth 93801 Nearvest 9 FSR M on fuck 2F9 E for VV4 and V for J.
Right. You can't miss the word fuck right in the middle there.
Exactly. And generating an address like that, a vanity address with a specific word, takes serious computational effort. It's not random.
So what's the message there? Just being provocative.
It's likely several things. Artistic intent, maybe. A signature certainly shows advanced technical skill. Definitely a provocation. A middle finger, too. Well, maybe everyone.
That's audacious. Add another layer of just.
Oh. It's a very bold statement baked right into the blockchain.
So, okay, moving beyond just the technical feat and the weird messages, they clearly tried to wrap this whole thing in some kind of legal justification. That salamonbros.com website reference in the messages. What's the play there? What does it mean for who actually owns this Bitcoin now?
It signifies a really sophisticated attempt at legal maneuvering. That website, salamonbros.com Hunter Notice, it lays out their whole argument.
Which is?
Basically, they're invoking the legal concept of abandonment. They argue that since the wallets were inactive for 14 years, the funds are legally considered abandoned property.
Right.
And then they set up their own claim procedure. The original owners have 90 days until that significant date, October 5th, 2025, to step forward and prove ownership with their private key.
And if they don't?
The implication is, after that deadline passes, the entity that moved the funds can legally claim them. They've essentially taken possession and given notice.
Does that hold up legally?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Or the $8.6 billion question. It's exploiting a gray area. But the preparation, that's what's stunning.
How so?
The salamonbros.com domain registered way back in January 2023. And another related one, salamonandcore.com, even earlier February 2022.
Wow, okay, so this has been in the works for years.
At least 3 years of planning evident just from the domain registrations. And salamonandcore.com even changed its registered address at one point from the World Trade Center to the HQ of Eisner Amber.
Burning Amber, the crypto audit and forensics firm.
The very same. That's a nod, almost certainly, to people who track this stuff. It shows meticulous long-term preparation.
So they're essentially trying to apply a concept like adverse possession for real estate to digital assets.
That's a great analogy. Yes. It's like squatters' rights, but for Bitcoin.
I found this abandoned digital property. I've publicly claimed it. I gave you a chance to object. You didn't. So now it's mine.
That's the essence of their argument. Drawing on old legal ideas like abandoned property doctrine and adverse possession, but applying it here It's legally untested territory.
It raises huge questions, doesn't it? What is abandoned digital property?
Exactly. Does just holding the keys technically mean you own it, even if someone else held them first? Does silence for 14 years mean you give up your rights?
Deep philosophical legal rabbit holes.
And interestingly, someone on the Bitcoin Talk forum back in 2013 actually mentioned one of these specific addresses as potentially recoverable.
No way. So this vulnerability, or the idea of it, might have been known for a long time.
It adds another layer of intrigue, suggesting this wasn't just a recent discovery, perhaps.
Okay, just when I think this can't get any weirder. You mentioned narrative haute couture. There are even deeper signals, aimed at insiders.
Oh, yes. This is where it gets really niche, but tells you a lot about who might be behind this. Let's call it the ultimate Easter egg.
Okay, I'm ready.
Remember the Eisner-Amper address connection with the SalomonCore.com domain, 733 3rd Avenue, New York.
Yeah, the forensics firm HQ.
Right. But that specific address, it's also where Gary L. Alford worked.
Gary Alford, the IRS agent.
The one who famously tracked down Ross Ulbricht, the Dread Pirate Roberts, behind the Silk Road Marketplace.
Wow. Okay, so referencing that address, what's the message?
It feels like a multi-layered message, a tribute to Alford's skill, a provocation, a direct challenge to current investigators saying, he found Ulbricht. Can you find me?
That is incredibly bold, almost taunting.
It's playing games at a very high level. And then there's another signal, perhaps even more subtle.
Lay it on me.
The counterparty signal. On July 2nd, 2025, just before the main event, a tiny transaction was sent from one of the wallets.
How tiny?
Exactly, 0.000000548 BTC. That's 548 satoshis.
Okay, why that specific amount?
548 satoshis is, historically, Bitcoin's dust limit. It's the smallest amount the network generally considered a valid, non-scam transaction for a long time.
Ah, okay, an old protocol detail.
Yes. And the recipient address. It was the official burn address for counterparty.
Counterparty.
Yeah.
That's an older protocol built on top of Bitcoin, right? From 2014.
Exactly. Known mostly to early Bitcoin adopters and developers. So sending that specific amount of dust to that specific address.
It's a coded message.
Absolutely. It signals deep insider knowledge of Bitcoin's history, its technical nuances, its meta protocols. It strongly suggests whoever did this is an authentic Bitcoin OG.
Someone who's been around, understands the culture, the history, not just some random hacker.
Precisely. It paints a picture of someone deeply embedded in the Bitcoin world from the early days.
So when you put it all together, the technical brilliance, the legal strategy, the pop culture references like Lost, the insider signals like Counterparty, the Alford connection. It's this incredibly layered performance. You called it a total cryptographic artwork.
It really feels like that. The narrative sophistication is just off the charts. They've woven together technology, law, culture, history. It's quite breathtaking in its complexity.
It genuinely is. The planning, the execution, astounding. So let's pivot to the fallout. Beyond the shock and awe, what does an event like this mean for Bitcoin itself and, the whole crypto world going forward?
Well, if this was a genuine cryptographic exploit cracking old private keys, the implications are pretty huge.
How so?
First, it directly challenges Bitcoin's core promise, right? The idea that private keys are practically uncrackable, even if it only affects older P2PKH addresses.
It still shakes confidence.
Tremendously. It could force a massive migration to newer, safer address formats like native SegWit. People holding coins in old wallets would suddenly feel very nervous.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
The big one, the elephant in the room, Satoshi Nakamoto's wallets.
Ah, the founder's stash.
Estimated at around 1 million Bitcoin. Many, if not most, are believed to be in this same older P2PKH format.
So if these wallets could be accessed,
then potentially Satoshi's could be too. And if that happened, the impact would be cataclysmic, price collapse, confidence shattered, maybe even forks in the chain depending on the community response.
Nightmare scenario.
Truly. So that possibility now hangs over the market. And looking ahead to that October 5th deadline they set,
yeah, what happens then?
a few possibilities, most likely. They try to liquidate the Bitcoin, realizing the economic gain.
Makes sense.
Or maybe it's technical escalation. They demonstrate they can crack more old wallets. Or maybe they go public, reveal their methods as some kind of educational warning.
But nothing happened.
Or they just sit on it, status quo, having established this weird legal precedent, maybe. We just don't know yet.
So this isn't just a Bitcoin story then. What are the broader takeaways for all of us living in this increasingly digital world?
Great question. I think there are a few key lessons. One is about the planned obsolescence of security. What's safe today won't necessarily be safe tomorrow.
So always update your systems, basically.
Constantly. For individuals, for protocols, developers need to think ahead. Second, it forces us to redefine digital property.
Right, the ownership questions we talked about.
Does technical control equal ownership? What does abandon mean online? These aren't just crypto questions. They apply to all sorts of digital assets.
Sure.
And finally, regulation. You can bet regulators worldwide watch this happen.
I have to be interested.
For sure. This could easily lead to new rules, new security mandates for exchanges and custodians, maybe even clearer laws about how recovered or abandoned crypto assets are treated.
So a lot of potential ripple effects.
Definitely.
Wow. Well, this has been an absolutely extraordinary deep dive. It really drives home that this wasn't just some massive transaction. It was, like you said, a performance, a cryptographic artwork combining incredible tech skill, a bold legal gamble, and just layers upon layers of communication. It's really unlike anything else.
It truly is. And it's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that Bitcoin and crypto in general, it's not just code. It's this living thing where technology, money, art, power, law, it all gets tangled together. Every block, every transaction tells a story. And sometimes, like on July 4th, 2025, those stories become, well, they become legends. They change the landscape.
So maybe the final thought to leave everyone with is this. In this digital world where code is increasingly treated as law, who actually holds the power? Is it the people who write the original rules?
Is it the ones who figure out how to cleverly break them or bend them or maybe even rewrite them through sheer audacity and skill?
Something to definitely think about.